All right, John, how you doing?
Hey, I'm good, Tom.
All right. Hey, I just wanted to say happy birthday to you. I know it's your birthday today, and it's also Veterans Day, which is awesome. And yesterday was the Marine Corps birthday, so it's like all happening at once. And I think that makes you all American, brother.
I guess I don't know about that, but it does make me very fortunate because I get a lot of texts. There's often times when I'm like in these 2 days, I get so many texts of happy birthday, and I got to decipher which one is which, and then I realize I'm like, if your problem is that you have too many people wishing you happy birthday, you have good problems.
That's right. Well, and I appreciate you taking the time out to talk with me tonight because I know you're busy and it is your birthday and everything, but I just want to thank you as a veteran for all your service. I know you've seen a lot in your time in the Marine Corps, and I hope you'll tell us a little bit about that tonight. But I just wanted to start out by um, saying, we're from both of us are from Illinois. We both served in the Marine Corps. Both our fathers were fire chiefs. We ended up in Vermont and crossed paths there. And, it just, you've always had some sort of like, I've always felt like a kinship with you. And I just really am thankful to have met you and crossed paths with you because you've influenced my life a lot as well, with your help with the Veterans Summit and the Veterans Club. And, it's just been an awesome experience.
Well, I appreciate those kind words, Tom, and thank you for your service. Someone like yourself who does so much for the veteran community often, doesn't thank themselves and look in the mirror enough. And me personally, I know for a fact, I don't know if I would be where I'm at today without you taking the precautions as a veteran to give me the care and that I needed and to help me along in school. So thank you.
My pleasure. And I don't know about looking in the mirror part because that's kind of scary. But anyway, so you were born in Chicago, is that right?
Yes, I was born the south suburbs and kind of moved around over my course of time here to the south side of the city proper. But yeah, born and raised in Chicago, came back after the military to Chicago, and then after that, I is when I went out to Vermont.
Okay. What was it like growing up in Chicago? I mean, I grew up 100 miles west of there in Freeport, Illinois, but quite a bit different, I'm sure.
Sure, yeah, it's I'm sure it's not too much different than any other big city. We're the third biggest city in the nation as far as I remember. Someone could fact check me on that, but I'm pretty sure Chicago's still number three. Chicago's got an interesting history where it's a tough city. A lot of people hear Chicago and think violence and the gun violence and this and that, which, it's there, right? A fact is a fact, but that's not the entire city. And you got to think about the context too. This city was laid out essentially by redlining and segregation, and that growing up here, that plays a part. Whether someone's coming into my neighborhood or I'm going to someone else's neighborhood, it's noticeable, and you learn things that you wouldn't be able to learn anywhere else. And I'm grateful for it. I love the city, and it's a beautiful city. If anyone ever wants to visit, I highly recommend it. Don't let the media scare you out of it.
Yeah, I mean, I love Chicago. I'm not a big city person, but I've been to Chicago many, many times and have friends there. And it's just great music, great food, great places to go. I always like going to the Signature Room and the top of the
Oh,
John Hancock.
yeah, makes you feel like a step up above.
Well, you are, and you
Yeah,
can see the whole city. Like in the
yeah.
day, it's good. At night, it's spectacular. It's just
You see the lake, and yeah, the blues scene down here is incredible. And I'm not a big city person either, and that's kind of why I went to Vermont and will be leaving Chicago again. But home is always home.
so. So you grew up there, but then you decided to join the Marines. What inspired you to join the Marine Corps?
So I grew up in a public service family, as you kind of mentioned earlier, with my dad being in the fire service. All his brothers are in the fire service, and then one of them was in a cop or a police officer. And then even on my mom's side, there was lots of fire service. So it's always kind of, my family's always grown up or I've grown up in a family that is service, right? Service in one way or another. And I knew I was going to go. So I thought I was going to go to the Air Force and become a firefighter. That was kind of the original plan. And then on September 2001, I was a freshman in high school, and the Twin Towers were attacked. And my family, particularly my dad, had some people that he knew out in New York who perished. And it was at that time that and this is gonna sound super cliche and corny, but the war started, and whether I agreed with it or not, I wasn't gonna go let someone die for me. If you have an issue with conflict, you take it up with the people that send people there. You don't take it up with the people who get sent there. And I wanted to do my part. It is what comes down to it. And for better or for worse, I did. And basically, I remember my dad said, well, if you're going to go fight, you might as well be one of the best. And, no offense to anyone else, but we are the best. So I joined the Marine Corps.
Was your dad a Marine?
No, he wasn't. There's actually so my grandfather, I never met him. Not my dad's grandfather, but my mom's dad was a Marine, Korean War vet. Unfortunately, I never got to meet him. He passed away from a heart attack shortly before my parents got married. But it was, I think, just my dad being in public safety. He knew a lot of Marines, and he had a lot of respect for them. I think, kind of growing up watching Full Metal Jacket, and then watching the invasion of Iraq, it was like, oh yeah, like those guys are mean business.
Yeah, I mean, my dad was in the Marines, and that had a lot to do with me going in. But you mentioned that your dad lost some firefighter friends or people in New York, and that was an interesting thing, because I was working for the United Seaman Service at the time, and they were based out of the World Trade Center. And I remember the firefighters, I would go, they put me up at the downtown athletic club for like 10 days. And that's where the Heisman Trophy used to be.
That's cool.
And all that. And it was just, I had never been to New York City. And I remember going to the World Trade Center, dressed in a suit every morning. And as I would go in, I saw these firefighters every morning doing a drill outside. And I talked to one of them, because, I'm curious, because, my family history with firefighting. And they were like, yeah, we have to run up in full gear up all the steps. That's part of our training. And they change different precincts or firehouses or whatever. And I just thought that was impressive, because that's a lot of steps. And when those towers came down, I mean, I just felt so sick to my stomach, those are the guys I pictured in my head, and so that was a very powerful motivator, I'm sure, for you to go in too. And as you mentioned, so I just wanted to mention that. So you joined up.
Tom, I got to interrupt you real quick though. I don't know, we've talked a lot. I don't know if you ever told me that little bit about your life, and I swear every time we talk, I feel like I need to drink a Dos Equis, because I think I'm talking to the most interesting man in the world. I'm not gonna lie.
Well, that's how I feel talking to you. So yeah. So you joined the Marines, and then you what was your MOS? Infantry or?
Yeah, so I was infantry by trade. It was 0341, a mortarman. And when I got to the fleet with 1st Battalion 7 Marines out of 29 Stumps, or 29 Palms, we call it 29 Stumps. We trained up on that, and the mortars weren't needed for our particular operation. Like, we had them, we set them up, we just never really used them because we were a cap team, and we got pushed out to a forward operating base. So basically my trade was 0341. I got cross trained as a 0331, which is a machine gunner, and then cross trained. Well, every Marine's a rifleman, right? So 0311, but I actually got to do 0311 stuff. So yeah, infantry and kind of the as Mark Hoffman likes to say, kind of the jack of all trades, master of none. But we were good with mortars. I'll say that. I don't want anyone calling me out and be like, "Oh, you were a mortarman, you weren't a master." No, we had that on target.
Well, I think we have talked about that because, I had been in for 3 years and I went to Camp Lejeune and I was with 2nd LAV Battalion, which is now 2nd Light Armored Reconnaissance Battalion. But they, all the cooks, I was a cook, and they made us all mortarmen. We had to be cross-trained in that unit.
60s or 81s, do you remember?
It was 81s.
Yeah, that's the good stuff.
And I had to carry the tube, which.
Oh, yeah. 35 pounds.
Yeah. Oh, man, with a rucksack. So, when you were humping around with one of those tubes, or did you carry the tube, or you probably switched off in different?
So we switched off. That's kind of the standard for a weapons company or weapons platoon. I was with weapons company. And when we would hike, someone's got the base plate, someone's got the tube, someone's got the bipods. I swear, for some reason, 35 pounds is sticking out in my head for the tube. But if I'm wrong, I hope someone calls me out on it and I'll push.
I thought it was 40, but
it might be. No, in the base plate now, someone will call me out, and I hope they tag this, and I'll do as many push-ups as I'm wrong. So, but yeah, you call, but that's kind of one of the great things is like there was this term I'll never forget, and me and my buddies still use. You say 81's up because we were 81 millimeter mortar platoon, and what that basically mean was, let's say I'm humping. So humping is the cultural term. So if I'm hiking with this big old heavy mortar tube and I'm about to go down, right? Because I have all my other gear and I'm like, I'm not going to make it. I say 81's up. And, one of my buddies comes running along, grabs a tube, and then I kind of fall back. And, it's kind of one of those cyclical support systems. And it, almost like a chain, if you will.
And so you were in Iraq, and how long were you there?
My first tour was 7.5 months, and my second tour was just a little over 7 months. So combined, around 15 months.
How far apart were those tours?
Ooh, good question. I would say, let's see, I got back from my first tour in October of 06, and then we left. So maybe like 8 months. So just about as long as a deployment, if you will, is, the kind of the turnaround.
And so since you had 2 tours over there, when you went the first time, I mean, that was your first introduction to combat, right? Mm-hmm. So what was it like going into that? Like, how did you feel? Like, it seems.
So, I'll never forget, like, our seniors told us that we all weren't going to come home, right? Like, one of us wasn't going to come home. And when I say seniors, like I mean like our corporals and sergeants, our senior, not like senior leadership necessarily, but as a ground level senior leadership. And they, said we were all going to come home. And it was like, okay. I know they had lost a guy, and it was like, all right. And then I think as we got closer to it, that kind of sunk in. And, I'll never forget when we were going from Al-Assad to Al-Qaim, we were flying in a helicopter, and the back end was just open. And like, I was looking out, and there was a big gun next to me, and it was just like, okay, like there's a real potential of getting shot down right now. So we're here. And then, when I step boots on the ground, it was kind of just a surreal feeling, you know. And as a young man, it was anticipatory, naive excitement, or just excitement, I would say. You don't join the Marine Corps infantry and not expect during a time of war and not expect to go to war, right? And yeah, it was just it was a unique experience. I'll never forget that I had joined to go over to help the population, and when we were going from El Came out to our forward operating base in a 5-ton truck, which is kind of like a big Oshkosh or international semi truck with armor plates on the side, as they call them, troop carriers. And the kids were just throwing rocks at us. And it was very much like, it was almost a duality, right? Because it was like, I came here to help, but the population I came here to serve is throwing rocks at us. And I just was, it was the beginning of a lot of long nights wondering, like, what this war was about, and I don't mean to get political, but I'm pretty sure anyone who's fought a war has thought, why they were doing what they were doing.
And so that was your first tour. And then several months later, after that one ended, you went back again. So you had already experienced it. How would you describe the difference of going back the second time? Like your feeling when you hit the ground? I mean, you kind of knew more what to expect, or did you, or how did that turn out?
Knew what to well, yes and no, right? Like, I know, and I'm sure there's going to be people who call me out or have different feelings, but you know what to expect to a certain extent, but like you don't, right? But we lost my first deployment. A couple guys got injured, and we lost 3 guys, KIA. And I think that just solidified with what my seniors had told us, that someone wasn't coming back, because they were right. So going back that second time was more or less like saying goodbye to everyone, because you knew that not everyone was going to come back. And it was like, hey, thanks. Like, it has been a good life. I ain't coming back from this one. And I talked to other veterans and people who have deployed multiple times, know that feeling of like, luck's going to run out, right? You see it once, that luck's going to run out. But I was also in a leadership position on my second deployment, versus being a new guy. And, there is a definite overwhelming feeling of responsibility, but at the same time, a feeling of, hey, this didn't work last time. So we're gonna adjust and get back on target. Now, that doesn't mean it always happens, but there's an eerie feeling of like, I'm probably not coming home, but then there's like this feeling like, I know a little bit more, I'm coming back, so it's almost again like that yin and yang, if you will.
Right. Devil dog exuberance.
Yeah.
No. Well, hey, thank you for what you did. I mean, it's just, I really appreciate how you described that earlier about, I'm not going to have somebody else die for me. My daughter's calling. I'll talk
You
to her
better
later.
answer that.
I know I probably should, but so I don't want you to have to go into all the details about your experience over there. I know it's hard. I mean, you lost some guys and everything. But just today, we were talking about setting up this call, and it's Veterans Day, and you went out and visited some graves and stuff. So are those just people you served with, or are they just in general veterans? Or tell me about that. That sounds like a very profound thing that you did today, and it's your birthday too. I mean, I'm just trying to piece all this together.
So fortunately and unfortunately, right, that like, fortunately, the graves I had to visit today weren't any of my guys that I lost directly from my platoon when I was overseas. Unfortunately, they were still graves of veterans. The one guy that I want to spend a lot of time with that I had to reschedule was so he was a Chicago police officer killed in 2018 in the line of duty, and he was my best friend growing up, and he's an Air Force veteran, and so I wanted to go spend time with him and just wish him a happy Veterans Day. But the other graves were, yeah, just local veterans, just people that I know, grandparents, parents of people, and some of them were killed in combat, like Connor Lowry. He's a Chicago guy that was killed in Afghanistan, and he his family is very good, very close to his cousin's my best friend. So, it's just kind of one of them things, man. You got what is it, 2020? So we're just about almost 20 years of war. There's a lot of people that are hurt.
So after you served in the Marines, you got back from Iraq the second time. You probably had some more time in the Corps before you EAS'd. And then you went back to Chicago after that?
Yeah. So when we got back from our second deployment, we got tasked out to do training with something the Marine Corps calls Mojave Viper, and we were basically training. My particular area was urban assault, and we were training other Marine battalions, platoons, and things like that to go overseas. And then I went and got help while I was in, and it was great for me, but it wasn't the best for my Marine Corps experience. Unfortunately at the time, I'm sure things have come a long way, but when you ask for mental health help, you kind of get blacklisted, right? And that was even with my own buddies, my own squad and platoon buddies, which since then we've rectified it. But after that, I came home and I came to Chicago. Wasn't sure where I was going to do. I wanted to be a firefighter, became a firefighter. But a lot of the invisible stuff was kind of starting to seep up into my experience. The community that I was involved with, and my family wanted John, right? They wanted John. And it was like, oh, you went to college. We know college was tough, but now you're home and you can be a firefighter and, buy a house and have kids and get married and be what we should be. But unfortunately it doesn't play out like that, especially after you go overseas. And that's kind of when things started settling in. And I ended up this is still answering your question, right? I'm kind of going on a tangent. You were asking like what I did in Chicago after I got back, right? All right. So, in full transparency, I didn't find what I was looking for in the fire department, and to no fault of any departments of their own. It's a me thing. And I got involved with a motorcycle club, and not that all motorcycle clubs are bad by any means, but I sought out one that was a little more rough and tumble on the south side of Chicago. And I spent some time doing some hood rat stuff with my friends, and was fortunate enough to come out on the other side.
So yeah, I mean, I can see that that adjustment coming back. I mean, it's hard to adjust to the civilian way of life anyway. And then with all your experiences and and all that, I can see how that plays out. But then you came to some epiphany or something, or you went, what drove you to go to college? And was Linden the first college you attended, or how did you end up at Linden anyway?
So yeah, that's a fun story. And actually, one quote I will say, one thing that I wish more community members would know about veterans, whether they're coming back from deployment or not, but specifically from deployment in a combat zone, is there's a saying that I've really liked over the years, and it goes, "I'm not the hero you wanted, but I'm the monster you needed." And I think that's a good filler for a disconnect, because when a veteran comes back, like there's this, just like anyone, right? Like if two people are different and they don't talk, but they just look at each other's differences, we get nowhere. And I feel like sometimes there's that wedge between the civilian community and military community, where one doesn't want to tell the other one because they don't feel like it's their burden, and one doesn't want to ask to burden them or feel like it's inappropriate. Where I disagree. I think we should all talk. We should continue to talk. We should have those difficult conversations, just as in anything else, right? So with that being said, how did I get to Linden? So I eventually realized that the motorcycle club and all the partying was getting nowhere, and that this is not how a Marine should act, right? And that's not saying that's the right answer, but that was my right answer. And I essentially said, okay, enough's enough. I was fortunate to go cold turkey on all the substances that I was using for a couple months, and I got involved with working on the oil pipeline down here in Illinois. And while I was doing the oil pipeline, working out there, I specifically remember one day we had this thing called a fire watch, where you had to stand with a fire extinguisher and watch people doing work, just in case there was an emergency. And it's raining like a son of a gun, man. And like, it was raining for 3 days before that. And at this point, I'm already sick. I got the sniffles, which now is great because I shouldn't say this is great, but now in the context of COVID, if I got the sniffles, I can be like, hey, I'm sick, and like, I'm not coming into work, and that's acceptable. 8 years ago, working on the oil pipeline, if I said I had the sniffles, I'm not coming into work. Well, then just don't bother coming, because you don't have a job, right? So essentially, I'm out there, and I'm miserable, and I'm getting no pride of work, no pride of self. And this guy rides up in a Ford Escape, and he's the safety officer. And I'm like, hey man, what did you do how did you just work your way up? He's like, oh, I went to college for this and that. And I was like, oh, these college son of a guns, at this time I was always a college, wow. And I was like, that's it, I'm going to school. Like, there's no way this guy, after all I've done, gets to ride around in a Ford Escape while I'm standing out here with the sniffles in the rain. Like, this is just unacceptable. So I joined a Benedictine university. So I kind of did the whole procedure. I wanted to go pursue, so exercise was what helped me get to this point. I should backtrack. I lost a considerable amount of weight from when I went cold turkey on January 1st, 2012 to this point, about 6-7 months later. And I was like, I want to do something with, it started with nutrition, and I got to Benedictine University, got accepted into the nutrition program. And I found out in the first semester that nutrition wasn't for me, and it was more exercise science, more weight training that I wanted to do, or at least go to school for and get my foot in the door. And they said, hey man, you're kind of a bigger guy, do you want to compete in track and field? And I was like, I've never done track and field. Do you have hockey? And they're like, no. I was like, yeah, okay, I'll do track and field. So they made me a thrower. And I really, I was a big jock before I went to the Marine Corps, and I just loved being on a sports team again, and at the college level, and it was just a fantastic experience. And I will say, to everyone that is thinking about going to college, especially veterans, I've heard so many times from people going, you don't want to go back to school, they don't get it, this and that. And I know, some veterans, this is their experience, but I'll tell you what, most of the college kids in my experience, being older and coming from the military, it's been nothing but appreciation. And they actually formed that camaraderie on that track team that made me, that really molded my career within college, in college sports. It was awesome. It was just awesome. I still have a picture of us on my wall till this day. And the long story short is, I'm a hockey player, and it was my biggest regret. I was getting scouted, and the war started, and all that. There's a war start. My country was involved in a war when I was in high school, so no matter what was going to happen for me, it's time to put that on pause, because I have a civic duty. This country's been great to me, and that's just what it is. But I always had a regret that I didn't go. So, I knew I wasn't going to the NHL. I knew I wasn't going to be a D1 college student or anything like that. So I started looking at college hockey teams, and Linden State came up. And I literally reached out to Coach Jonathan, and I said, hey, I'm a little older. I haven't played competitively in a while. I've been playing men's leagues, but I guarantee I'll outrun anyone on your team. I'll outskate them, I'll outlift them, and I'll outwork them. They said, all right, why don't you come out and why don't you come skate with us? And, we'll have a talk. And that's what I did, and I got accepted to the school, and the coach said, like, we'd love to have you. Little did I know it was a club team, so everyone gets accepted, but, I think he just wanted to put my money where my mouth was, so, yeah, it was literally, I couldn't have told you where Vermont was on a map, ignorantly admitting. And it was literally the best thing that's happened to me, man. Going to Vermont is my mom specifically told me when I went out to Linden, my first Northern Vermont University Linden campus, then Linden. My mom told me going out to Vermont and being at that school that she had seen a piece of me come back that she hadn't seen since before I left for the war, and that resonated with me. And to this day, like this Vermont is that's my place.
Well, I remember one of the first times I met you, you set up some meeting, or I can't remember exactly how it unfolded, but you came into my office and you heard that I was in the Marines, but also in the Peace Corps, and you were curious about the Peace Corps, and you were kind of considering that. And I remember talking to you about it, and of course, I highly recommended it. But even if that never transpired, there's still time if that's what you want to do. But it struck me because, not everybody that serves in the military obviously joins the Peace Corps. It's kind of different, but there is something about veterans that join the Peace Corps that sets them somewhat apart. And I know you were curious about it. And I think it speaks to that community service, like you were talking about your father and relatives, police and fire, and and that's, to me, has always been part of, like, it is service, the military service, Peace Corps service. And I just, that struck me that you came to talk about that. But then we had other interactions, and the other thing that really, and I'm jumping ahead a little bit, but you started the Gold Star Roses Foundation. And I remember visiting you when you were showing me about your roses and talking about them. And I'm like, oh my God, this guy is like an expert on roses. I mean, you were like the science behind it and everything, and how it linked back to Chicago. I forget even what
Chicago
that rose was.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm thinking, oh my God, he should be working on his thesis in exercise science, but here he is writing a dissertation on roses. So tell me a little bit about that, because I felt that what you were doing there and honoring other veterans and their families, Gold Star families, was, like, obviously very profound and impactful. So tell us about that.
Yeah, absolutely. And you're not too far off from the Peace Corps, man. I'm in school for social work now, and a lot of my colleagues spent time in the Peace Corps. So, it's at the desire to serve. But, with the Gold Star Roses, and I'm really looking forward to getting back into it. I had trouble trying to grow them out in Colorado. Was not expecting it to be so dry and hot and sunny and deserty, but lessons learned, But yeah, so Gold Star Roses essentially, and when I get to growing them again, I've been growing them here in Chicago. When I start giving away, I don't think I'll go as mainstream, because I think it took away from a little bit from what it was for me. But I love roses, right? I always have. I think they are a great representative of masculinity and femininity, and even asexuality. There's it's just a flower. It can be beautiful. It can be tough. It can be rugged. And they're just, they're Harley Davidson uses them, with skulls on their T-shirts. You give a rose to your first date, but you're also putting it on a coffin as you walk by. I mean, it's just the most versatile flower, and I love that. So I started growing them because Vermont being Vermont's particular Northeast Kingdom, you know, I had some property and I was like, I got to do something with this property, right? Like that's the Vermont way. Like I have land, it's time to work it. And I was like, I want to grow some roses, you know, and I looked into it, you know, just like any good Marine wants to know his weapon, you know, wants the recon, wants to figure out the enemy, quote unquote, but like, not that the roses were the enemy, but like the elements were, you know, the Japanese beetles were, the black fungus, you know, so I wanted to know how to beat them. And that just kind of led me down a wormhole. And once I started getting these flowers grown, I was you know, taken back on how beautiful and plentiful they were, and just kind of getting this sense of pride and accomplishment in with these roses, right? And there's lots of literature and different things on healing properties of farming with veterans or plants. And you know, I don't, to be honest, there wasn't like an aha moment that was like, I'm going to give these to Gold Star families. And for anyone that doesn't know what a Gold Star family is, a Gold Star family is someone who's lost a loved one serving for the United States military in combat. But it just kind of manifested into it. You know, it was like, I'm going to go give a bouquet of roses, short one, so 11 roses, to veterans families. And that one rose that was short was or to signify their loss. And I wrote, you know, a little note to the families. And the whole premise behind it was, you know, only veterans could come with to deliver the roses. You've been on a couple of them with me, which I'm very thankful for. I've delivered one set of roses by myself, and I'll never do that again. But only veterans can come with, and I try to keep it to where only veterans can work on the roses. But you know, hey, when I'm out of town and roses need water, you know, you take the help you can get. But it just kind of came a thing where you know, this note that I wrote to him was like, look, you know, when the romanticism of war, you know, fades, when time passes, when the politicians, you know, don't care anymore, when it's not, you know, something on an election ballot, when it's not, you know, something that, you know, people make careers out of, when it just stops and you're still left with your loved one being gone, like, we didn't forget. The people who served behind him will never ever forget, and we don't forget you. And that was kind of the whole premise of it, right? It was like, I'm growing these roses for myself to find some peace. And I just felt like there were people who needed that peace more, you know?
Roses never fade.
That's right. You know, that's right. Unless you don't give them water, then they're going to die. But other than that, you know,
Well, you can press them in a book and
that's it. Yeah. Yeah.
Wow. And speaking of book, man, I think you have a book to write at some point.
Man, I think we might have to collaborate on that. Maybe like we could take both our stories and make them some like super awesome person, you know?
Two Illinois boys.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
So, you know, that was close to I mean, I remember when we did, you know, we went out to Jesse Strong's family, and that was the first time I went to deliver those roses. And that was a very powerful experience, but that must have been towards the end of your college career at Linden. And so you were wrapping things up, and you know, you graduated, and you know, I think there's a lot in between there. I think you left and came back, and I know, you know, it was a struggle. You had some challenges, obviously, the invisible wounds of war and everything, but you persevered. And I know it wasn't easy, because I remember, but you're at the University of Chicago. That is a prestigious school, and the Chicago school, you know, the social work program there is renowned. So tell us what you're doing. What are you studying? What is your emphasis? What's going on? And what do you plan to do with all of that?
Yeah. Yeah. So, yeah, you know, I definitely had my rough road, after graduating. And I essentially I was practicing exercise science, and I kind of started my own small business. And it was good. Colorado is competitive, and that was just poor planning on my part, which kind of led to myself kind of figuring out where I wanted to land. And I realized as everything I was doing, I worked when I got out to Colorado, I worked at a physical therapist office, and then I broke away and I started my own business. But everything I was doing was always related to veterans, right? And then that was like, oh, I shouldn't say that. I got excited, when a veteran came in the physical therapist office. I made friends with them. I rode motorcycles with some of the clients that I met. And then I realized quickly that my business plan as a small business owner was failing when you give veterans free sessions all the time, right? There's like this money thing, I guess, that you have to make, and I was missing that portion. But I just couldn't bring myself to charge a veteran to just come in and lift some weights and talk and shoot the shit and have a safe place. So, and then there is this piece where I always, particularly, I think, Tom, it started probably 2015, and watching what was happening with Iraq and what was happening with, ISIS over there and the communities that I fought for and lost for. And I just felt an overwhelming sense of guilt and responsibility to the Iraqi people that, I went there for one thing and we didn't, from my perspective, I know many other people feel differently and I don't want to put words in anyone else's mouth, but I feel like we didn't hold up our end of the bargain, and that put them in grave danger. And that stuck with me. I graduated, and from 15 on, Operation Inherent Resolve and everything with Syria and Iraq, and just watching it and just feeling so helpless. So I said, I want to work with, and then talking to you, like, I want to work with refugees. I want to work with Iraqi people, and Syrian refugees. And that's, and then with having always worked with veterans and having that affinity in my space, I really wanted to figure out how, and that led me to, I didn't even know U Chicago what it was. Like, I applied and then I was like, holy shoot, like, I should have maybe should have rethunk this because I don't belong here. But they sent me an acceptance letter, and I got here, and it really turned quickly into, I want to work with peoples of conflict, right? Like, I have a love for veterans, and here in the US, I think that is kind of what I stick with. But I am, so at the University of Chicago, I'm in my master's for social work. And then I'm in two programs. I'm in the graduate program of health administration and policy, and I'm on the global track. And then I'm also on my program of study, because that's a certificate program. My program of study is a global social development program. And what I do with being on a clinician track is I'm learning all these mental health modality and behavioral techniques. But I'm also learning that cultural piece. And I'm learning, essentially, my goal is to work here in the US with veterans. And that's what I'm doing now at the University of Chicago, and getting, the cutting edge research of care, just the best training, I could possibly get as a mental health clinician. But then in my back pocket, having those global and cultural classes to then turn around down once I graduate and figure out how I can apply that with refugees and how, what is appropriate, right? Because, like, it's great, all these modalities I'm learning for veterans is great. They're evidence-based, but they're evidence-based on veterans, US veterans for the most part. Like, how does that apply to an Iraqi person? Does it? I don't, does it not? So that's kind of where that global and veteran piece have let me, because at the end of the day, you shoot a rifle, you shoot a rifle. You watch a buddy get shot or blown up, you watch a buddy get shot or blown up. It doesn't really matter what, contextual country you're fighting for. At the end of the day, we're all human, and we're all committing and witnessing the same things. So
I find that to be really profound because Mark Hoffman, who we've mentioned a couple times, another NVU graduate or
oh
Olympic
yeah,
State College graduate,
the
Army
man.
Special Forces career guy, a
Yeah.
lot of combat. He's, also one of the co-founders of the Veterans Club with Jason Clark and others, but he's a member of this veterans book group that we're conducting right now. I'm one of the facilitators of that, and we've read a lot of books about combat throughout history, different cultures. We've read books from the Vietnamese perspective, the Russian perspective, the German perspective, and different conflicts going back, Civil War, Revolutionary War, World War I, World War II, and it's really eye-opening in the sense that because it aligns exactly with what you're saying, that the human aspect of war is so similar. It doesn't matter which side you're on because most of the people fighting are just regular people, and they're doing what they consider their duty or or maybe they have to do it or whatever, but the
Mm-hmm.
experience is the same. You just flip the side and I don't know. That really resonates to me. So thank you for sharing that.
Absolutely.
Um, no, I think that's incredibly awesome what you're doing and where you're heading. And I'm definitely going to follow your career. I'll always be in touch with you. I mean,
That's right. Well, we got a lot of beer to drink, Tom.
that's right. Well, we brewed that one together. It's
We
Gold
sure
Star
did.
Roses IPA. I put a little rose hips in there. And
We
we
sure
brewed that
did.
together, bottled it. No, that was a good beer.
Yeah, it was.
I made that a second time. I think I showed you on Facebook, and definitely I have the recipe. So maybe I'll brew it up again and send you a couple cases or something,
Absolutely.
or personally deliver it. It would even be better.
That's right. You can hold my hair back. So, oh, fun plug too. So if you notice, the hair and the beard's getting a little long. So I'm actually running the Marine Corps 2021 marathon. I've been training like a son of a gun. Did my half marathon on Saturday. Did real well. But I'm running. I have a Forrest Gump costume, and I'm running it to raise money for Vietnam vets. And I'm literally growing all my hair out in my beard to look like Forrest Gump when I run it.
That's awesome. When is
Yeah.
that?
It'll be October 2021. So I got a good solid year to go. I'm hoping to start fundraising. I kind of I was going to start, but I'll probably wait till June with COVID going on and the holidays. I just don't find it appropriate to ask for more from people. But, come January, the Vietnam vets, man, they particularly my generation as a post 9/11 veteran, they made this way possible, right? They made this instead of getting spat on, I get thanked. And it's that generation is getting older and they need someone to look out for them now. And I think it's our turn to take that torch.
Yeah, I mean, I've really enjoyed working with the Vietnam vets here in Vermont with like the Veteran Summit and stuff. And I think you're absolutely right. I mean, those guys, and men, mostly men, but some women, but they went through a lot. It was a totally different culture back then, and how they were treated, and the politics around all that. And they did do a great job, like thanking younger veterans when they came home. They wanted to make sure that they were thanked properly and recognized and stuff. So that's always a powerful thing. And so I think that's great what you're doing. And let me know when that comes around. I'll see what I can do to help out. And
I will.
I don't think I could participate in a run like that, in my elderly capacity, but well, we did do the Boulder together.
That's
I mean,
right. You did
not
damn good.
together. I was way behind, 6-mile race. I was 5 miles behind you, but
Hey, don't discredit it. That was good. You did a darn good job.
well, it was fun. And, that was a great time too. And I was excited to have you meet my Marine brothers, Mark Kernick and Jeff Folks, living out
Yeah,
in Boulder at
it
the
was an
time.
honor.
Yeah, so good stuff. Well, listen, we're almost closing in on an hour. I just wanted to, you know, what would you say to veterans out there that are kind of wavering on the fence about going to college? I mean, and I just want to emphasize this because, I grew up, not far from you, but a working class kind of smaller town, but I never really thought about going to college seriously. I knew my parents really didn't have the money to pay for that. And when I joined the Marines, I knew I had some benefit to that effect. And when I got out in 1985, they had just passed a law in Illinois to give veterans free tuition. Without that law, I probably never would have went to college. And that's how I ended up going. And I went down to Western Illinois University, which strangely enough, they're the Leathernecks and they get their name from the Marine Corps, which is an awesome connection too. And, even living here in Vermont, there's such a connection with, Western Illinois was in McDonough County and Macomb is the county seat. Those all come from the War of 1812. And there was Admiral McDonough and General Macomb, and they fought right off the coast here of Burlington out in Lake Champlain.
That's
So
crazy. Yeah, I know
yeah,
exactly what battle you're talking about too.
right.
Yeah.
And so all these little connections like that makes me feel like I'm at home here. But so veterans that, then I was kind of resistant to college because of that working class background. Was kind of like, I work for a living.
Yep.
Going to college, that's kind of for wimps or what,
Yep.
I don't know. I had a
No.
weird view of it. But once I did, it changed my life. Like there's no way I would be any close to where I am today without that experience. And I feel like you connect to that too. Like it really was a game changer for you. So what would you say to veterans that are kind of wavering, like, should they do that?
Yeah, that's a great question because I was the same way. I'm the first male to go to college out of my family ever. And I was the same way, and I don't like using the term toxic masculinity. It's just not, I don't think it's an appropriate term. But I get where it's going at. And when I look at how college was viewed, it's either you go into the trade, you go into the police, the fire, and the military, which are awesome jobs. Like I got buddies that are going to be making way more than I ever will, even with my college. However, I also know guys that went to college or are in the trades now. You know what I mean? Like, but where I kind of was getting at was like this, this hard nose, as you use the term, like leatherneck, kind of like, oh, we don't go to college. And I do think that's a bit of a toxic view, because college was the Marine Corps and college were the best things I've ever done. I would say in the context of terms that college was the best thing that I ever did to help me heal. And it wasn't easy, right? There were a lot of times that and it comes down to finding the right school. I transferred to Boston out of Linden, chased the girl, and got to Boston, and it wasn't the same experience. I came back, and now where I'm at University of Chicago, great school, I love it, but it's also, I wouldn't recommend coming to the school that I'm at if you're coming straight out of the military, right? So, but with that being said, like college, it literally it helped me see the world and myself and my community in a different way, just like the military did. And it made me a better person. It made me think about things a little bit more contextually and you do find a bit of, camaraderie. Now, I found that in playing sports, and I know that's not for everyone, but you have your niches. There were times, there were times I took World War II class and I got super triggered, and I went to you and I said, hey, I'm not going to class. I need to get to the VA, and you helped me out. You told my professor, so I do think that if a veteran's thinking about going to college, you should go to college. If you're not thinking about going to college, you should go to college because it's paid for and you get extra money on top of it. But with that being said, I do think due diligence pays off to look at the college that you want to go to, especially if you're new to the college experience, right? If you're one of them guys that know that you college might have been in the cards, in high school, or you did some stuff in the military, and you're good with academics, then you're more than likely, and I don't want to generalize, but more than likely you probably kind of have an idea of what you're going to get out of college. But if you were like me and you, where that wasn't necessarily in the cards and that wasn't our thing, I do think a little bit of research on the school goes a long way. And that's what I found with Vermont. Little did I know it's in the woods in the mountains, which was a huge plus. Like, being able to go, shoot my rifle in between classes didn't suck, but it's made me who I am now. And now, I'm in my master's. I'm interning at Rush University, Rush Hospital in Chicago, which is a very, very well-known hospital here. And I'm at the Road Home program, which is sister programs with Home Base, which is out in Boston at Mass General. And I'm an interning clinician. We work with veterans from across the world or across the country, get flown in, no cost to them. They get put up in a hotel for 2 weeks. They get fed, their family member gets flown out. We do clinical work with their family member to understand, what the veteran's going through. And I'm also interning with the San Francisco Veterans Affairs remotely right now. And I'm working on rural telehealth equity post COVID-19. So we're looking at how do we get, telehealth to rural communities. As everyone in Vermont knows that's a challenge, right? But if I didn't go to school, I wouldn't have found these opportunities, which is completely given purpose, right? And like, I worked on the oil pipeline. I worked as a laborer. I've been and I love those jobs. It just wasn't giving me the purpose that I needed. And I know buddies that do have that purpose, but I'm so grateful for going to college. I'm so grateful for what the government has given me that chance. And at the end of the day, I kind of felt that, there's single moms working 2 jobs to try to make ends meet to go to college. And here I am, at the time, 24, 25-year-old guy with no kids, nothing. And they're not only giving me college that's paid for, but they're going to pay me to go through it. I kind of felt that it was, an obligation in a sense to honor the people who, didn't have that privilege. And I don't like to use that word privilege either, because, we earned it. But at the same sense, like, not everyone who fights for their country gets awarded free college. That is a privilege to be as an American soldier, and I think there's a lot to that.
Well, and you look at the GI Bill and the history of that and how that really transformed the United States economy after World War II. And,
Yeah.
all those guys and women coming back from combat overseas and getting an education. It was definitely a game changer because that was, it used to be more for the elite. And so I like the way you phrase that. I mean, it is it's not really an obligation, but it kind of is in a way. Like, and I feel, because we have that service background, that it's a two-way street and you just want to, give back. And
Yeah,
but
absolutely.
so as we end up, and I can delete this if I have to. No, I'm just kidding. But last time you were out here, you brought a lovely lady friend with you. Are you still together?
Yeah. We live together now. We got our 3 dogs. I am on track to, I don't know how familiar you are with the Upper Peninsula of Michigan. So, the kind of the plan was to go back to Vermont, to be honest with you. And we're going to get some property out there. soon. But I lost my grandma in April, and I had been away for most of my adult life. And as I said in the beginning of this, I can't be in a city anymore. It just never kind of was for me, and now it just isn't. So we're going to be going to the Upper Peninsula of Michigan. It's just as snowy in Vermont. One particular place gets about 250 inches of snow, just as cold. You're right off Lake Superior there. But I'm going to be working for the VA. Yeah, we're going to go up there and live our rural life and keep doing good things with veterans like you. We have our little dream of, up in the Northeast Kingdom, getting like maybe 2-3 acres to just be able to pull a camper in, every here and there. And, once the family kind of, this is, I guess, morbid, but right, we all die. Like once they kind of start dying off, particularly the parents, I think I'd really like to try and end up out at White River. That's a national center of excellence for PTSD. And I think that is something that I strive to do. I could tell you if it wasn't in Vermont, I would not want to go there.
Well, I hope you do make it back here, but I think the UP plan is a lot of Upers up there, but they're good people.
There you go.
And I'm
That's
happy
right,
to hear
though.
you're still together with that young lady. When you brought her out here, I know she rides a Harley, and it sounded like she was a better shot than you. So it's a match made in heaven.
Let's not say that too loud, okay? Because she's gonna hear that and she's gonna start chirping me all night.
All right, John. Well, hey, listen, really a pleasure speaking with you, and I thank you for taking the time out and sharing some of your life with us. And I really appreciate it, man. I look forward to seeing you soon.
Hey, I'm always honored that you include me in these things. I'm just I'm so fortunate to have, the community that in Vermont that brought me in and people like you in my life. And, at the end of the day, if anyone's thinking about it, go to school and more so if you need help, like reach out and ask, and it's okay to not be okay.
On that note, happy Veterans Day. Thank you, brother.
Semper Fi, brother. Thank you.
Bye. All right. Good night.
Hurrah.
Hoorah.